Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
In a country with over 1 billion internet users, a single rumor can outrun the truth before breakfast. Words spread at the speed of a share button, some with good intent, some with the power to destroy. And now China is drafting its first dedicated anti-cyberbullying law, trying to draw a hard line between a heated debate and a digital mob. So, where exactly is that line? Coming to you from our studios in Beijing, this is Roundtable. I'm Fei Fei, and for today's program, I'm joined by Steve Hatherley and Yushun. First on today's show. We scroll, we comment, we share. The internet has become a place where millions, or in China's cases, billions of voices meet every day. But sometimes, behind that screen, words can turn into weapons. A rumor can spread in minutes. A private detail can become public overnight. And an online crowd can leave a very lasting impact on someone's real life. To address this challenge, China has released a draft anti-cyberbullying law for public consultation, aiming to define what constitutes cyberbullying, strengthen platform responsibilities, and provide more protection for those affected. So in a world where everybody has a voice online now, how do we draw that line between free expression and online harm? Hello, Yushun and Steve. Before we talk about this draft law in China, I think we need to get to, what exactly is cyberbullying, and in particular, what is China trying to define what constitutes as cyberbullying?
There's got to be a fine line telling that, okay, it's not like you cannot comment online anymore. It's not like you cannot criticize anybody, because this is a place with a lot of opinions, debate ideas, and sometimes disagree, of course. But at what point does an argument cross the line and become harmful, and we call it cyberbullying?
Yeah, and I think the definition is necessary because that big gray area exists, right? Like you said, you're allowed to criticize, you're allowed to have a comment, you're allowed to say something negative. So if that's the case, then what is it that constitutes cyberbullying? And that's why the top internet regulator here in the country, they released a draft for an anti-cyberbullying law, and it's been released for public consultation, and it marks a new step in efforts to address online harm. And it also, the point, of course, is to better protect individuals, not only individuals, though, but also organizations. We're going to talk about this at some point in our discussion today. It can be a group too. But yeah, protection in cyberspace is the whole point.
Yeah.
So there's 60 articles in it. Like I said, it's open for public feedback. That's going to be going on until the 28th of this month, the public feedback portion. And policymakers here are looking for us to build a strong framework for preventing and tackling cyberbullying.
So what does this draft define cyberbullying?
There are a lot of behaviors. Actually, it refers to online actions carried out in a concentrated or sustained manner that infringe on legitimate rights and also interests of individuals and organizations, as we mentioned, including their reputation, their honor, their privacy, portrait rights, and personal information. Of course, we kind of understand what a cyberbullying is, but still there are some very hard standard on these kind of things. These behaviors include large-scale online attacks involving insults, rumors, defamation, hate speech, threats, and discriminatory remarks. And the illegal disclosure of personal information, persistent online intimidation or harassment, and also other actions that cause harm to individuals or organizations. Basically, if you are if you're doing something that introduces harm to somebody, then it can be included as.
So if I go online and commenting under somebody's social media post saying, your hair look gross, does that constitute a cyberbullying?
No.
Or just me having a opinion.
I think that would constitute an opinion about something about that person. So yeah, everybody goes online and has opinions. So when that line is crossed is when speech turns into targeted harm. So there's intent there for you to hurt that person. And an example, I think, would be to look at it like this. If you have a disagreement that focuses on ideas or actions, then that's okay. But cyberbullying is different in the sense that you're targeting, like I said. So here's an example. If you say, oh, I disagree with that actor's performance in that movie. I don't think it was very good. And I don't think the script writing was very good either. Then that's an example of having a negative opinion, right? Mm-hmm. But if you say, hey, actor, ABC, you are a worthless individual. Hey, everybody, let's try to find some private information about this person and let's attack that person as a group. Well, then you can feel it, right? Then you're crossing into targeting that person. You've gotten other people involved in that example, and you're trying to hurt them.
Yeah, that sounds actually quite extreme. And I don't think nowadays a lot of people would do that or say that explicitly. And that's why another very important factor is scale and also repetition.
The repetition, right?
Yeah. So a single negative comment may be just, unpleasant. It's just a unfriendly comment that you can give. But cyberbullying often involves a wave of attacks, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of comments, repeated harassment, coordinated reporting, or the spread of rumors. Still, the example of this one being a bad actor, of course, they can improve in some way. But if the comments is like they are gathering up in a whole group, probably with hundreds of thousands of people, commenting on his social media and saying that you're being a bad actor, that can be also a cyberbullying.
If it represents a pattern of behavior, then it becomes a problem.
A pattern of behavior, meaning you are not only doing it for once, you are doing it, for example, for a couple of days or even weeks. And I think another question for a lot of the audience is that I don't think a lot of people intentionally or want to bully somebody. Well, I mean, the majority of the public online. But somehow, I think in some incidents in this society, somehow you find yourself participated unknowingly into this on-scale, repetitive attacks on a single person or on a single organization.
Kind of the herd mentality, right?
Yeah.
So you see other people doing it, and then you join in on that, and people might think, oh, well, everybody else is doing it. I just made one comment too. Therefore, I'm innocent in all of this. No, that is not the case at all. But yeah, the psychology behind that is when a large group of people starts to do it, particularly online where there's anonymity.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, then, people might react that way. And, the number of internet users in China, too, I think is another good reason to establish laws like this, because it's one of the world's largest online communities. There was info from the People's Daily from December, I think it was December of 2025. So that's a few months ago, but the numbers will tell you how significant the online community is. 1.1 billion internet users as of that date. So you can just imagine, it's like Yushun said before, where you get one online dispute, and when you have 1.1 billion people using the internet, that can turn into, from a single comment, into a firestorm in a matter of a morning, like you said when you started the show, Fei Fei.
Yeah, before breakfast. And also we have data actually from the government showing us that the scale of cyberbullying can create, for example, according to a 2023 white paper called China's Law-Based Cyberspace Governance in the New Era, platforms have taken actions against cyberbullying-related contents. They've been handling over close to 30 million pieces of cyberbullying-related information. They intercepted and removed them. And there are also 1.5 million reminders were issued to users encouraging responsible posting. And there are also 38,000 one-click prevention notice sent. We can discuss that later into the show about what exactly is this one-click prevention notice. And there are also 22,000 accounts have been issued with severe punishments for cyberbullying. So there have been actions been taken trying to tackle the issue, but still it remains to be one of the biggest challenges in our age. I think on a global scale, it is also a challenge and an issue for many, many countries.
Yeah, and it has been for a while. There was a poll released by UNICEF and the UN Special Representative of the Secretary General. It was on violence against children, and this came out a few years ago, back in 2019. But it revealed that 1 in 3 young people in 30 countries said that they have been a victim of online bullying. So that's a pretty significant statistic, isn't it? 1 in 5 reported having skipped school due to cyberbullying and violence, and that just illustrates how seriously this needs to be taken because, well, if you've never experienced it, that's wonderful. Hopefully you never will. But for those that do have to go through this, it can be almost incapacitating in the sense that you lose your confidence, obviously. You want to avoid social situations like going to school because of what might happen to you. Remember, these kids grew up in a digital era. They live online. Their entire reputation sometimes is online. So what happens online is basically the same as attacking them physically, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, and that's why we're having this conversation. And that's why a lot of artworks, TV dramas, movies are also in the theme, on the theme of anti-cyberbullying or just simply bullying, because it can just cause a lot of serious consequences, no matter it's mentally, emotionally, even physically. It can lead to some kind of different scale of self-harm to a lot of students, especially when they don't really have that much of knowledge on this society, because as you said, Steve, they live online. It's basically their own reputation. It can actually reflect to every aspect of their lives. So when you are facing these kind of things, it is really hard to actually overcome by yourself, or you don't have any guide. And that's why this is a very serious issue that needs to be discussed, needs to be paid attention to.
Yeah, I've personally, I've never been bullied online before, but I think I've somewhat on the edge of feeling the power of online comments and the internet. Is that, this morning actually, I had a friend who shared online about she used to go to a couple of coffee shops to grind her coffee beans, and now these shops are turning her down, saying they're not grinding beans for the customers anymore. And she sort of complained that online, which is a very random natural reaction, I think, today. And she received over 100 comments bashing her for being unreasonable.
Really?
Just this morning.
See, you make one comment, and that just goes to show, right? Sometimes the criticism might not even be an attack originally, but if a group of people decides that they don't like what you said, then you are going to have to deal with those consequences.
Yeah, so this is how serious when we're talking about reacting, communicating online. But when people and governments and societies are having this consensus that cyberbullying is an issue and has very serious consequences, but on the other hand, it also seems to be a very difficult problem to solve these days in this digital world, isn't it? They face a lot of challenges, and there are a lot of reasons behind why maintain or controlling cyberbullying is very difficult.
Yeah, you just could not see what kind of result or consequence that you can lead to when, as we just discussed, maybe you didn't even have a intention of harming somebody. But I'm not justifying for these kind of people, because we know that phrase, when the avalanche is happening, no, not a single snowflake is innocent. So when people communicate online, they often do not see the immediate emotional impact of their words. And also psychologists have described this phenomenon as the online disinhibition effect. People may behave more aggressively or just say things online that they would hesitate to say face to face because they feel anonymous or socially distant from others.
That's what I was trying to say before. Yeah, it's the anonymity. You can hide behind your screen with no threat of any sort of repercussions of your behavior. It's like, I think of this example too. You know how some people, when they drive in their car, they're really aggressive, kind of road rage.
Yeah.
They'll swear and they'll scream and they'll honk on their horn super loud. Well, do you think that same person would behave the same way if someone cut them off at the movie theater ticket line? Would they scream and shout? No, because they're in the safety of their car. Right? So they feel protected. I think it's exactly the same thing here. People sit behind their screens at home. They know nothing really terrible is going to happen to them if they leave a comment. And then combined with the fact that the internet has become this negative place and there's statistics that prove that, creating negative content inspires more clicks and views and stuff like that. So then it's like a snowball that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's easy to see why.
Yeah, and also when it comes to the herd mentality that Steve mentioned before, when everybody is commenting bad about, for example, a single actor or actress, it sort of feels okay if I'm just following suit because I may have a similar view about this. So, and also, do you think it also has something to do with how social media platforms were designed? They're sort of also amplifying this negativity, this herd mentality among a collective group.
Yeah, many platforms rely on the engagement, right? The clicks, the comments, the shares, and the time that you watch these short videos or longer videos to keep users active. And content that triggers strong emotions like anger or outrage can sometimes attract more attention and spread faster. And that's how researchers have found that social media algorithms can amplify emotionally charged content because such kind of content often generates more interaction, and a controversial post may receive thousands of comments not because it is accurate or constructive, but because it provokes strong reactions. That's actually one kind of a technique when you're trying to select a cover. You want to put the most controversial words or sentence at the beginning to attract the clicks, right? People just like these kind of information. Not probably you don't even include these kind of information in your whole video, but when people see it, they'll just click in.
Yeah. And the internet, is just kind of a weird place anyway. I mean, I like to watch and listen to ice hockey podcasts. And I left a comment on a video one time. This is only a few weeks ago. Disagreeing with the opinions of the host about a particular hockey team and what they should do as a strategy next year. Pretty simple topic, very harmless, right? I just said that. Yeah, with all due respect, I disagree with what you said. I think they should do this instead of that. Well, somebody replied, I can't repeat the language they used. Oh, you're an idiot. You're such a loser, blah, blah, blah.
What?
Yeah, but this is the internet these days. This is what people do.
Yeah.
Would that person ever say that to my face in person? No, but this is just how it goes sometimes these days. And that's, again, why we need to put things in place to make sure that, and that's a very mild example, by the way, but we got to put things in place to make sure that the extreme examples don't happen.
Yeah, and that comes down to the draft law this time that China is trying to put forward. And I think coming to the details of this draft law is how exactly is China, the Chinese lawmakers have in mind about, how should we tackle cyberbullying in this country? I think platforms, as we, Yushun talked about how they design the design of algorithm to encourage engagement and clicks. They are somewhat should shoulder more responsibilities in some sense, but there are also new things being included in this draft law this time, trying to somewhat tackle this global issue, isn't it?
We actually witnessed some of the changes for the past years. I remember probably 5 years ago, just a couple of years ago, Chinese social media started to have a kind of rule that all of the users that commented, there will be a little tag showing which location you're in, like your IP address. It's not like what specific area you're in, just basically your city. I think that also aroused a lot of debate or discussions on, okay, it is actually, I think, revealed a little bit of your identity online, but not that much. But even in this scale, people are, discussing it. Am I just transparent online now? Well, from the circumstance or the whole situation right now, what we can see is, I think we still need more. So this time, one of the biggest changes brought by this China's draft anti-cyberbullying law is that it attempts to turn cyberbullying from a vague social problem into a clearly defined legal issue, and making it easier to identify violations, also hold perpetrators accountable, and also protect victims.
Yeah, and that's very important, isn't it? I think when it comes to cyberbullying, it's okay. It's easier, I think, even for the platforms to delete comments, for instance. But who are there to be held accountable for doing actions in this, and also have future implications into preventing future cyberbullying? And I think it's one of the highlights of this draft, isn't it? Trying to make cyberbullying more specific, more practical, and easier to identify and execute it in the real world, isn't it?
Yeah, so instead of treating every online disagreement like cyberbullying, which it's not, the draft, the idea of it is to focus on the behavior. And again, to go back to the point, is it concentrated or is it repeated? Is it coordinated? Is it a privacy violation? Is it persistent harassment? Is it malicious defamation? When we put those definitions in place, it's a whole lot easier for the people in charge, the authorities, to say, okay, this constitutes cyberbullying or this doesn't constitute cyberbullying. When you don't have that list of things in place that define it, then it's almost impossible for authorities to say, well, then it becomes subjective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It becomes up to it's the opinion of the person in charge of some particular case, but that's not a good way to go about things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also this draft is now hoping to introduce a kind of emergency tool to victims. It's called personality rights injunction, and it's more of like an emergency brake to immediately shut down all of the bad comments that you can get. Like if someone was attacking you online, you could just sue them, but court cases take months, right?
And they're expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
And during these months, the hate posts, the rumors, the comments, they will be there still. By the time a judge finally rules, the damage is already done, and basically you cannot change that. And now you don't have to wait for a final trial. You can just run to a local court, and then before things get worse, and ask a judge to say, stop right now, and the bully has to halt whatever they're doing instantly. No matter it's the issue of that specific user or a group of users or the platform, there got to be an action to be done. And you just go to your local district court, and the one probably in your neighborhood or the one where the bullying is coming from. You don't need a federal court or a high-powered lawyer just to file.
Yeah, you just have to prove it. You have to show two things, actually. One, you need to show the proof that someone is attacking you right now, or perhaps is about to. That constitutes immediate ongoing harm. And then two, you have to convince the judge that if they don't take action, if they don't step in immediately, then your rights or your mental well-being will suffer damage that cannot be undone later. And this isn't just this just isn't sitting around in a law book somewhere. This actually has teeth, because the court can issue the order, and then the police are there to enforce it for you. So to get you the protection that you need.
So we're talking about the protection of the victim, but not also another major changes is also about targeting those are launching these kind of attacks or organizing this kind of cyberbullying online or help or encourage to spread those rumors or attacks. The draft law aims to prevent people from hiding behind a crowd or assuming having that herd mentality that everybody is doing that, so no one is responsible. But those who intentionally create or amplify online attacks could face liability, could face penalty, and could face even criminal consequences. And Yushun, what kind of penalties could these people face?
There are specific rules that is indicating these kind of things. Platforms must take immediate blocking measures like cutting off the profit-making or revenue-generating privileges of these accounts, also restricting the account's functions, blacklisting the accounts, and prohibiting them from re-registering. And also, in addition to severing the profit chain, these accounts may face fines ranging from 100,000 yuan to 500,000 yuan. Oof. And the anti-cyberbullying law also mentions a seriously untrustworthy entities list for internet services. So relevant authorities may impose these trustworthiness penalties and directly ban such individuals from providing internet information services, which means that, of course, you will get fined. And after the investigation, the whole platform may be also responsible for the whole incident.
And the platforms get fined more.
Exactly.
Much more.
Yeah, violating a single provision of the anti-cyberbullying law can result in a maximum fine of 2 million yuan of the penalties. And if particularly serious consequences occur, the fine can be up to even 10 million yuan. And their relevant business licenses and also operation permits may be revoked.
So it also impacted on the future of their operations. And I also think the draft law also tries to make it easier for victims to seek help. And I also think that's very important since we talk about how many children are online right now and they are facing this kind of problems, especially when it comes to cyberbullying. One of the common problems is collecting evidence and stopping harm once it's started to spread. For example, platforms would be required to provide easier evidence collection tools, and courts could request assistance from public security authorities when victims have trouble obtaining evidence. And I think some platforms are already out there trying to have installing these kind of functions for users to collect data, to collect evidence on themselves.
It's a good thing. Also, I wanted to come back to this point. We've only spoken about individuals, but this also recognizes organizations as well. Companies are included in this too. So we know that they can become targets of online attacks, false accusations about a company, rumors can spread, campaigns can start that are designed to damage their reputation. So the result of those types of online attacks can be devastating for a business, right? So therefore, that could bring huge financial losses for them, never mind the reputation. But this kind of draft law, if put into effect, would help them have a really clear legal path for them to defend their interests.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to think about, when we're talking about cyberbullying, individuals are the most cases that we can think of. But when it comes to organizations, enterprises, companies, they are also the victims of a lot of cyberbullying cases in this country and in this world, really. So now this draft law places more responsibilities on platforms. It requires platforms to set up clear standards and case databases to identify different types of cyberbullying more accurately. They will also need to keep track of high-risk accounts and take action against these kind of violations, including limiting their traffic, suspending comments, and even banning the accounts like Yushun mentioned before. And also this draft is also trying to respond to some new challenges these days, isn't it? like artificial intelligence is also taking part in a lot of cyberbullying, actions.
Or I was thinking, people, because this is a law, I think it is more of protecting the victims, right? And then people may take advantage of these kind of rules. Say one person, he's getting into a fan group chat, and then he started to say something really mean and unreasonable to that whole group. And then the whole group started to, fight back. And now that single person who is actually the one is saying bad things, now he's becoming the victim.
Yeah. The bully becomes the victim.
And he started to claim that, okay, I got cyberbullied by this whole group. And now with all of the circumstances we just mentioned, these behaviors will be shut down, and probably the group leaders can be fined or something. But is that the case that we're looking at? Or I think it is more important, and we need to pay more attention to verifying what kind of actions the cyberbully is, or what is the source of the cyberbullying.
Well, yeah, the source of the cyberbullying, I think, is the behavior. I think that's the root of the problem, right? More so than the words that are being spoken, it's the behavior behind it. And I think that's why the stipulation about repeated attacks, because it's not so much whatever words appear in the post as it is the conduct that you are repeatedly attacking this person. I think that's why that's so important. But also beyond words, it's even more terrifying. You mentioned AI, Fei Fei. AI tools are now, the fake content that can spread, the videos that can be made to make them look real, but they're not. How do you defend against that? It's getting scarier and scarier.
So that's why we are discussing this draft law. And I think this draft law could be the foundation of building a more healthier, a more safe environment for everybody can start a discussion rather than, starting to attacking another person. So that is not only about the law's job, but also about everybody's job. And we'll keep an eye on the future of what kind of internet culture we are trying to cultivate in this world.